Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am doing a foundation review and hopefully a 12-hour wear test on this new Burberry Ultimate Glow Foundation. So this actually was released in Canada a few months back, so I have been testing this out. Initially, I was not super impressed on this, so I wanted to try it out for a few weeks and really give it a full review instead of a first impressions. I've gotten used to this foundation and now have my final thoughts on it. So again, this is the new Burberry Ultimate Glow Foundation. There are only 12 shades available, which isn't amazing. I picked mine up at the Bay. It was $62. There is 30 milliliters of product and it is good for 1 year. So yes, 30 milliliters or 1 fluid ounce. I picked mine up in the shade 40 Light Warm. I will say it was a bit of a challenge to find or to pick a foundation shade because there weren't actually swatches of them. And on the Bay, they were disorganized, like the colors were kind of sporadic. They weren't organized from lightest to darkest. So I chose as best as I could. This is a tiny bit too light for me. I am a light medium complexion with warmer undertones. This does work for me pretty well, but it's just a tad bit too light. This is made in Italy and it is a luminous youth infusing serum foundation. So I'm just going to read a bit about what this foundation is supposed to do. From the Ultimate Glow Foundation collection, discover the new Ultimate Glow Fluid Foundation, Burberry's most luxurious serum foundation, a perfect blend of skincare and makeup for a multi-dimensional, youthful glow day or night. Formulated with a powerful blend of active skincare ingredients, including hyaluronic acid and viola extracts. This youth-infusing formula plumps and smooths your skin with its 8-hour hydrating properties for a visibly youthful complexion and ultimate radiance. So this is a skincare infused foundation, similar to like the Chanel Sublimage or the new Clé de Peau foundation that I just reviewed. These are supposed to be serum-like foundations with skincare properties, so you get the perfect blend of skincare and foundation in one, which I really enjoy. I love the new Clé de Peau foundation, and I love the new Chanel foundation. So I was really excited that Burberry was releasing a skincare-based foundation as well, because I just enjoy those ones so much. But I will stop blabbing, and if you want to see my full review and wear test on the new Burberry Ultimate Glow Foundation, just stay tuned and let's get into application. Okay, moving on to foundation application. This is the gorgeous foundation bottle. It definitely looks very luxurious. It has this gold cap and it's a pretty hefty foundation. It's not the heaviest thing in the world, but I do like when a luxury foundation does feel like a luxury foundation, and that kind of reflects in the weightiness of the packaging. So you just pull it off and you get the full bottle of foundation. At first you do need to twist the pump, and I forget if I said this, but I got the shade 40 Light Warm. It's just a tad too light for me, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a shake and just start with one pump. So when you pump it out, it definitely is a serum-like texture. If you can see, it kind of just looks like a moisturizer. It is not too runny in the formula, so it just kind of looks like a serum. In comparison to the Clé de Peau, the new foundation that I reviewed, this is about the same consistency, and compared to the Chanel Sublimage, which is also a serum foundation, it is not as runny as that one. And I'm just going to bounce it onto the skin. So I did already go ahead and apply concealer. I have found, because again, this is not a first impression, this is a review, I've found that my favorite way to apply this is when I don't use a primer underneath. It goes on the best when you just use the foundation on its own, which is actually really nice that you don't need a primer. So again, I don't think I need a pore blurring primer. I don't think I need a moisturizing primer. In fact, I think that it makes the foundation look heavy if you use a primer underneath. So that is really nice that it's a serum foundation and you don't require a primer. So with one pump, and like I said, I did go in with concealer on my under eye area just because I prefer to apply concealer before foundation. And then I just had a moisturizer and sunscreen that I applied when I washed my face this morning. So with one layer, that is definitely a very light coverage. I can still see freckles and little pigment through. But it does look really beautiful. It looks very skin-like. I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like built up. So I'm going to go ahead and just pump out one more pump. If you did want more coverage, I'm sure a brush would give you a bit more coverage, but I don't like how foundation looks when I apply it with a brush, and I just prefer a lighter coverage. So again, going in with that second pump just on my Beauty Blender, and I'm just going to concentrate that on areas where I have more pigmentation and that I just want to build up the foundation. And with that other pump, like, it goes on very beautifully. It's definitely an easy to blend foundation. It just goes onto the skin really nice because it is, again, that kind of like serum-like texture. So it just blends onto the skin really easily. You don't have to work with it. It's not very finicky. And it's sitting over all my dry areas really nicely. It's not emphasizing any texture at the front of my face. I will say it does. It's interesting because this is supposed to be an Ultimate Glow foundation, but it does just sit a little bit around my nose. It looks really good on my forehead though and in my pore areas, but the only area where I've had some trouble is just around my nose where there's those little folds there. Okay, so this is the foundation on my skin. Again, I do have concealer on under my eyes, and this is with 2 pumps. So this is definitely built up to a more medium coverage. I still consider it more of a light to medium. I can still see a little bit of my freckles at the front of my face. It does look really nice on initial application. It's perhaps just a tad bit too light for me, but like I said, I can still see a little bit of redness through. I can see a slight glow. I wouldn't consider this the Ultimate Glow foundation right away, but usually that kind of will happen throughout the day. But it looks really nice so far. I think it just looks like healthy, radiant skin. Not overly radiant where I look too glowy or anything like that. I think it just looks really beautiful. Right now, this is kind of the perfect level of coverage for me. I, again, like something a little lighter. It's smoothed over any texture in the front of my face. It's not emphasizing any dry patches. It's not sitting into any fine lines. The only area, like I said, that I'm having a little bit of issue with is around my nose. But everywhere else right now looks pretty good. I don't have any complaints so far. Actually, now that I am looking at it a little bit closer, it's sitting a little bit in my little lines here, but it's not terrible. It looks pretty decent right off the bat. I'm going to go ahead and finish off the rest of my makeup, and I will show you how it looks off initial application. Sometimes I like the way a foundation looks once I have my other makeup on. It just looks a little more put together. And I think I'm going to forego eye makeup today just so I can really get a look at the foundation without being distracted by any other eye makeup, and then keep the rest of my makeup pretty natural. Okay, just figured I'll do my complexion products on camera just so you know what I use with this. I am not going to set my face with powder right off the bat because I want to see how this foundation performs. I'm going to go in with bronzer, and I am using my Sisley Phyto Touch Sun Glow Bronzing Gel Powder, which is just a really nice one because it is that gel formula, so it just melts into the skin really nice and kind of like you apply a cream bronzer. I really love this formula. It just looks very skin-like and natural. I'm kind of going for that vibe today. I finally picked up the Chanel Fleurs de Printemps blush and highlighter duo. So I'm going to go ahead and use that today for both my highlighter and my blush. So first, going in with the highlight, I'm just going to apply it right just to the high points of my cheeks. Again, I don't want to add too much highlighter because I really want the focus to be on the foundation today and the skin. And then for blush, just taking the other side of the duo with my Wayne Goss 12 brush and just applying a little bit just to the apples of my cheeks just to add some health back to the skin. I'm just going to leave the skin there for today. And then for lips, I'm going to go in with the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Lip Liner and then just top it off with my Chantecaille Honeypot Lip Veil. Okay, so this is my full face of makeup applied for today. Again, I wanted to focus on the skin, so I'm just going to leave my eyes blank for today. And yeah, anyways, the makeup is finished, and I would like to talk about how the foundation is looking just right after initial application. So it's probably been on my face for about 10 minutes, not very long, but sometimes with your other makeup on, you can kind of tell how it's going to look and how it's sitting on the skin. It just looks a little more put together. So initially it looks really nice. It's not emphasizing any texture on my face. Again, it went on really easily. It is that serum-like texture, so it applies very effortlessly. You're not going to, like, it's not a foundation that's going to dry as you're applying it. It applies like a tinted moisturizer kind of would. It just goes on very smoothly, evenly. No issues with that. It doesn't go on patchy or anything. The shade is just the tiniest bit too light for me, but that is totally fine. You can just add a bit more bronzer or add like a bronzing serum to it. And I think it looks really pretty on texture in the front of my face, like over pore areas. It's not sitting into pores, it's not emphasizing them. It's definitely a light to medium coverage. I have a little scratch on my nose. It didn't completely cover that up. I can still see a little bit of pigmentation, but I just like how healthy and fresh it looks off initial application. Like I said, I have been testing this for a while, and I wanted to give this a full review because on my first impression, I did not like this foundation. I didn't like it because I used a primer underneath, and I find for some reason if you use a primer underneath this foundation, it looks a little heavy. It doesn't sink into the skin. It just kind of sits on top of the skin, which is very interesting. So definitely my recommendation would be, sorry, my cat is just right in front of the camera. My recommendation would be to apply this without a primer. And that's really nice because it is a serum foundation. So technically you shouldn't need a primer. And I think this performs best without a primer personally. It just sinks into the skin way more. So I think the only issue that I'm having, it's not sinking into any lines of my forehead right now, and it doesn't look heavy anywhere. It truly does look like a skin kind of textured foundation. It's not overly luminous where it looks kind of, sometimes if a foundation is too luminous, it kind of looks like makeup. This doesn't. It just looks very fresh and healthy, pretty skin-like off the bat. The only area of concern I'm having right now is it is sinking into my smile lines right here, not in a dry way, but it's just kind of sitting in them a little bit. And then a little bit around my nose, but it looks better now that I've applied foundation. It's kind of sunken into it a bit more, but it is just a little bit dry around my nose area, but there's not any more, like it's not emphasizing any dry patches anywhere else. It's just in that area where I'm noticing a little bit, but that is me being very critical of this currently. So with that being said, it is now 8 o'clock in the morning, so I'm just going to go throughout my day and wear this, and I will be back in a bit for my first check-in. Okay, I'm back for my first check-in. It has been 5.5 hours. It is now 1:30. I could check in earlier, but obviously my lipstick has worn away. I also have not powdered this foundation. Now my preference with foundations is to wait until the last possible moment to powder. So I don't powder when I first apply makeup just because I don't want to have to apply powder right away and then 4 hours later have to apply it again to touch up. I just would prefer to apply powder when my foundation is looking a little shiny, just so I don't have to keep on going in with powder throughout the day, because that will add to the cakiness. But anyways, back to the foundation. I think it looks good. It still is looking very natural on my skin in my experience. I just think it still looks very skin-like. I'm getting a little bit shiny just in the front of my face right here around the pores, but it's not accentuating the pores in that area, even though I'm not that much shinier. It's very subtle, but I still think it looks really good. It hasn't faded anywhere. It doesn't look patchy. It's not cakey. It hasn't bunched up anywhere. Now, I will say at this point, this is where I start to notice this foundation. I don't want to say it looks heavy in this area, but it almost kind of sinks into some fine lines around my forehead. Also around my smile lines, just here, it starts to sink in those fine lines a little more than on the initial application, and around my nose as well. So it just kind of starts to separate a little bit in those areas at this point. So I don't know if this is the longest wearing foundation, but again, it does look very beautiful on the skin still. This is definitely something that I would wear for those more natural makeup days when I want my foundation to look very light and natural, but I don't necessarily need a foundation that's going to last me like 12 to 16 hours, just because I am noticing, like I said, not that it's separating at all or fading away, but it just kind of settles a little bit into lines at this point. So that's kind of the only issue I'm having so far with it, but it's not a huge issue. You could, like I said, touch up, apply a little powder if you feel a little shiny. Even though this is called the Ultimate Glow Foundation, I don't feel like I have an ultimate glow. I don't feel that this is too glowy of a foundation at all. It's still giving me that very, very much like a skin-like effect that's not overly radiant or anything. And I like that because I think if you have a foundation that's too radiant, it can emphasize texture and stuff like that. So at this point, 5 hours in, I still think it looks good. I don't feel like I need to touch up at this point. Yeah, so I'm very happy with it. Like I said, just those small issues, but I will come back in a few more hours for another check-in. Okay, I'm back for my final check-in for the Burberry Ultimate Glow Foundation. I did touch up my lips a little bit because I was feeling a little undone with my eyes not done on camera, but anyways. The foundation at this point, so it is 7:30 currently. It has just been over 11 hours. It's been 11 and a half hours. At this point, it does look pretty nice. It hasn't separated anywhere. I am definitely getting shinier in the center of my face. I could definitely use a touch-up. Again, I have not powdered this foundation. I will say, because I have tested this foundation out for, I guess it's been like 3 weeks now, I will say it does perform best when you apply powder on top of this foundation. I still think it looks really nice. Again, it hasn't separated anywhere. It's not sinking into any of my pores or anything like that. And I do notice that it will wear a little longer if I do powder. It's definitely faded a little bit on my chin area. I've been kind of resting my hand like this while I've been working today. And it's faded a little bit on the tip of my nose. Again, the areas of concern that I had the most issue with is around my nose and around my smile lines. It's definitely sunk more into my smile lines, and it's definitely faded away and creased a bit around my nose. I don't find a huge issue with that. I actually like how it looks better now than it did at the 4-hour mark. At the 4-hour mark, it started sitting in a little bit on the center of my forehead, and now it's kind of just sunk into my skin a bit more and it doesn't look as dry there. Now, in comparison to like the Sublimage foundation, which I've been loving, and the Clé de Peau, those I prefer way more. This is a foundation I will reach for. I'm just trying to think of occasions. I wouldn't wear this if I was like going out at night or anything like that, just because I don't love how it wears. If I was going out, I'd wear the Chanel Sublimage or the Clé de Peau or like my Surratt Dewdrop foundation. I would say this is the most comparable to the Surratt Dewdrop foundation in how it looks on the skin and how lightweight it is. The Surratt Dewdrop foundation I just find wears a little bit better than this one. So this is something I would reach for if I'm running errands on a daily basis, like to work, because I am currently working from home. This is a good daily foundation. It's just not something I would reach for when I want my skin to look its absolute best. But I do like it. I think it's a good foundation. I just have foundations that I like a little bit more than this one. So I definitely enjoy it. It's just not going to be something that's probably going to make my top 10 foundation list, but I do think it's a really pretty one. So I hope that helped. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Let me know if you guys plan on picking up this foundation or your thoughts on it. Don't forget, before you go, to subscribe to my channel, like this video if you like it, leave your comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video.